Do we stand for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And as a way of respecting, honoring, and creating awareness about our past, we begin our village board meetings by acknowledging that New Paltz is on the ancestral land of the Munsee, Esopus, and Lenape people. And just a reminder to please check out our agendas and minutes and help us find new ways to support Indigenous communities and share those with us.
Okay, a couple of adjustments to the business agenda tonight. Because we're not meeting in person, we're going to postpone a few of these items. So we're going to recognize Stewart's Shops with the Design Review Board and Historic Preservation Commission on February 8th at that meeting. And instead of having a presentation from the Lalo Group regarding the proposed project in the pit, that presentation is going to be moved until the February 22nd Village Board meeting. And we're also going to meet with Marlene Alfieri to discuss her candidacy for the Affordable Housing Board. That's going to be rescheduled. In terms of another item that we have to add to this business agenda, it's a resolution regarding setting the date for the tax sale of unpaid village taxes. That was moved from the consent agenda to this business agenda, just as a reminder. And that is it as far as amendments to the business agenda. I move that we accept the agenda as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And then on the consent agenda, we also have to add item number 6. That is the resolution to authorize the mayor to execute an agreement with the Ulster County government with respect to enforcement of real property tax liens. And with that, I motion that we accept the consent agenda as amended, and I move that we accept the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Announcement. So we have a public hearing at the planning board on the 21st. This is regarding 218 Main Street, and another public hearing that will also start on Tuesday, February 21st regarding 6, 8, and 10 Cooper Street. And there's a public hearing for the Design Review Board / Historic Preservation Commission on February 13th regarding 68-70 Main Street and its renovations. That's the former library reading room, which is also the Kontiki and Gourmet Pizza building. Does anyone else from the is Eve here tonight, or does anyone from the board want to make any announcements?
Eve can go first.
Hi, not a lot because we haven't met since the last time I met with you. It's the legislature just gets really intense until December, and then it's pretty chill till February. I will just say that as far as this upcoming year, one of my priorities at the early start is putting in a policy that we take a deeper look at the mental health services that we're delivering in Ulster County, figuring out our gaps, figuring out what we should be doing in-house versus in contracts. So that is a resolution that I should be putting in this for this month. If it's finished, it's pretty close. And I guess the only thing I would add is as we start a new year and we're several months away from the next year's budget, if there are thoughts and interests, things that you'd like to see accomplished by the county this year, we have a brand new executive. And so there's many opportunities. And again, we still have the majority Democrat. So for me, if I have an initiative to push through, it's a little bit easier. So I encourage people to let me know if there's something specific that I should be looking into.
Thank you, Eve. I share your concerns about mental health, and I will come talk to you about some things that I want to move forward, if possible.
Eve, I think it'd be great if you summarized our info session from last night, because it was very helpful and appreciated that you attended regarding the proposed memorial and cemetery at Plains Road. You want to just give us a quick
Sure.
background and kind of next steps?
Yeah. So for those of you who don't know about it, so the Veteran Cemetery that's happening on Plains Road is a county project. Many years ago, the county went into an agreement with the town and village to be able to utilize that property, really with the intention to expand the Veterans Cemetery. Right next to it is a piece of property that is being used for that way, but they wanted to have a larger swath of land, recognizing, unfortunately, the growing need. So those got approved by towns and village planning boards. Again, we're talking 5-6 years ago. But at that stage, what was important to recognize is that the specific details of the plans were not what the planning boards went through, just the very nature of having a veteran cemetery used in that space. So I know that one of the first concerns was that many community members felt left out and didn't have the opportunity to speak towards these plans at the village and town level. But I think that it's important to recognize that there was nothing really specific to speak towards, just the fact that they were going to put the veteran cemetery. There was nothing, no visuals, no lighting, no nothing at that point. The agreement was to allow the county to take lead agency. And so it moved more to the county planning board. Since then, the project has grown in many ways that has raised concerns for me. It has gone from about a $250,000 project to a $3 million project. I raised many concerns in the legislature when it was time to vote on it, feeling like there was certainly ways that it could be still highly respectful and supportive to veterans without having a lot of elements that they were adding that I felt really raised the price. Unfortunately, I was the minority in that I was the only one. So I was the extreme minority. And so it proceeded, and what I learned only recently, but quite reasonably, was that the renovations that are being done are having impact on the neighbors. And specifically, there were some concerns about the visual, but also I think the primary issue was the lighting, recognizing that this was a relatively dark street and people appreciated that. And here they had these bright lights. So at this point, it seems like the community, they're not asking for any buildings to be torn down because that's a done deal. They really want to have better solutions on how the lighting can be handled. One of the biggest sticking points is that the American flag, apparently during a code, although I admit I have not read the flag code in any time recently, but when it's up, it needs to be lit. And so the question is there a way to not have it be up all the time and then doesn't have to be lit? I think some of the concerns are, who would be the one lowering the flag? How does that work on the weekends? And so the long and short of it is, I was unaware of all of this. Now that I will work directly. I have time. I've already spoken to Dennis to set out time to meet with him. I've been included in the community list. and we will find a solution. And don't know what that is yet, but we will work towards a solution, and that I hope will make everybody happy. And we are hopefully going to be scheduling a new meeting, perhaps within a month, is my guess, right, Tim? To talk about where we are. There's not a specific meeting scheduled yet, but I think we made the commitment that it wouldn't be much longer than a month. And if there's any questions.
Yeah, that was super helpful. And I know that the neighbors from Plains Road were appreciative that you were another voice at the table who had familiarity with the project history, and will continue to, help make that the best memorial it can be, so it works contiguously with the neighbors and what they think would be appropriate on a rural road.
And I want to thank you again, Eve. You were awesome last night, and we really appreciate you being the liaison and taking care of this.
Thanks. Hopefully you'll be happy with the results.
Hopefully.
Any other announcements from village board members?
I have a bunch. So I want the community to know that drug test strips are available for free at a few different locations, including Town Hall, Family of New Paltz, the New Paltz Youth Program, and the Community Fridge outside Village Hall. And Phoenix and I were talking about other locations to come soon. I was thinking the paint swap would be good, but maybe wait until things are done being moved around in Village Hall and stuff before we have like the spot where drug test strips can be found. But you can find them. The Community Fridge is always stocked with those. So speaking of the community free food fridge, it's open 7 days a week, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. It's outside 25 Plattekill Avenue. If you're hungry, go eat. If you have more to spare, please donate. Just follow the guidelines that you can find at millionsofbutterflies.org/free-food-fridge. The Millions of Butterflies project is looking for more steady volunteers for the new year. So check out their website and their social media links and whatnot for information on how to sign up and join the Slack, or you can just reach out to me and I can link you in. So this is an update in terms of numbers to text for Narcan and other harm reduction services anywhere in Ulster. The phone number I had previously been sharing was with a program that just lost its funding. So forget the past, we're moving on. I found a new great resource that does all the same things for us. So it's at Ellenville Regional Hospitals. And it's their Project Rescue program. And so you can text ERH Rescue to this number 2100. And they have Narcan, they have drug test kits, fentanyl test strips, like snort kits, sex kits. I didn't even, there's a whole list of things my friend that works there was telling me. And basically, even if you need to find substance use recovery programs, support groups, like anything that has to do with harm reduction, you can get by texting 2100 to ERH Rescue. Another update is please continue to save the date and get excited for the Tenants' Rights 101 workshop to be held on campus at SUNY New Paltz, a room in the sub to be officially determined by next meeting. It will be on February 28th, 7:30 p.m. Legal Services of the Hudson Valley will be presenting, rights and things to know and answering questions. New York Public Interest Research Group is co-sponsoring, so is the Student Association and our Landlord Tenant Relations Council. Just another update, because I've been posting on social media about this. My friend Jordan Taylor, still missing. They're a New Paltz graduate, New Paltz adjacent person. So there's going to be some more flyering around the community this weekend. So please just, his family is asked to keep sharing the flyer. You know, there's a lot of reason to have hope that he's somewhere. So yeah, and then I wanted to share one last thing. I got an awesome letter from 8-year-old Nora. You can't see it because it's Zoom. About basically, I promised I would read it. So, dear Alex, my name's Nora, and I'm 8 years old. I know Casey Quinn, that's my friend, and I'm a village resident. I love to play at the Hasbrook Park, but I noticed a writing and graffiti that said "You suck" in red. Little kids were getting scared. So I'd like if you could ask Mayor Rogers if he could ask someone to clean it up. Did ask Mayor Rogers, and like promised, I read it at a meeting. And I don't know if there are any updates on that graffiti.
Yeah, as soon as we got that, I got that at the same time that Casey circulated it, and I asked Blue to look into cleaning that up. I know we have graffiti remover in the DPW garage, and I'm hoping that was taken care of straight away. But I'll put a note to see whether that was cleaned up.
Thanks so much. I love being able to make our constituents happy in this way.
Absolutely. And the note included a picture, actually a video of the graffiti, and it was pretty nasty looking and definitely in need of being cleaned up. So we thank our 8-year-old constituent.
Well, my note included a lot of hearts.
Yeah, the note was great, and the video which showed actually where, you know, it said "You suck" inside the slide tunnel. It definitely seemed scary. I probably would have felt scared myself.
Yeah, and I told Casey Quinn to let Nora know that, you know, sometimes those of us that get elected are a little too big to fit inside some places. So we really do count on our little constituents too. So thanks again.
Yep. Any other announcements from the board? No. Do we have anyone here that wants to make a public comment about anything at all? Kitty, I see your hand. Just yeah.
I know that the Lalo project is not on your agenda tonight, but actually maybe that's better, because when my husband and I bought the adjacent property at 6 Elting Avenue in 1989, our realtor, Kathy Scott, I don't know if any of you are old enough to remember Kathy Scott. Okay. She told us that it was called Sharpshooters, and she referred to it as Sharpshooters during the wholesale. And she said it was called that because it had been built either by or for, she said, a Civil War sharpshooter by the village. And if you look at a lot of the interior construction, it's pretty old lath work. So, you know, I don't know if that's something for the Historic Preservation Commission to look into. You know, I looked online and it says it was built in 1930, which seems late if it was for a Civil War sharpshooter. Maybe it was a World War I sharpshooter. But anyway, that's how she referred to it. And a lot of the architecture, and I think it's got most of the, I know it has most of the original interior, and it's now owned by the Mountain Laurel School. So there are two things to consider as the project is reviewed. Does it have some special historic significance? And, you know, it's also now adjacent, not across the street from, but adjacent to a property that is used by a school. So that's Sharpshooters. I think it's terrific that you have the Clean Slate Act on your agenda. And I just wonder if when you get the list of delinquent tax properties, if you could share, I mean, I know that it's publicly available, but if you could give us a heads up so that maybe the Affordable Housing Committee and the Ulster Activist Housing Committee could have a look at it and see if we can do some fundraising. I don't know. But if we could have a heads up when that list goes public, that might lead to some more housing. Thank you. That's it.
Thanks, Kitty. Yeah, that's exactly why we moved it from the consent agenda, just to help get the word out. Because sometimes people might not have paid their bill just because something slipped through a crack. So, part of just making sure the community was aware of the properties was for reasons like you just described. Maggie, I see your hand up. You want to make a public comment?
Oh, yeah, thank you. And I want to thank Kitty for making me aware of the fact that the clean slate was on your agenda. I've been following this piece of legislation for quite a while. We thought we'd hoped last year it would have passed. I think it didn't pass last year because there's a discrepancy between what the governor wanted and what the legislative branch wants. First, I want to say the legislative branch is much closer to what I think is a better piece of legislation. But anyway, clean slate is certainly a racial justice and economic justice issue, but more so it's moral imperative. People can't get jobs, they can't go to school. There are a lot of there's a lot of issues with people who have a record that really, if you live the rest of your life looking back and being judged by the worst thing you've ever done, we'd all be in a bad situation ourselves, because there are things that all of us have done that we're not particularly proud of, perhaps. But more importantly, it is an opportunity for the state to really try to do some of the injustices that have long been with us. And I'm just very proud that the village has taken this on. I think, Alex, I see you smiling. I hope that you'll be one of the people behind this, but I'm sure the leadership that Tim has on this board makes it go forward too. So hopefully, we'll get something out of this tonight. And I just really, I'm very pleased that this is part of the agenda. That's it.
Thanks, Maggie.
Anyone else interested in making a comment? With that, we have on our agenda
Hey,
just
Carol, raise your hand.
Yeah, Paul and I are both here to show support for the Clean Slate Act. I just wanted to let you know. Okay.
Thanks so much.
And just for the sake of maintaining an inventory of comments, we got a note from neighbors on Plain Road, the Varianos, about the proposed hotel at 1 Water Street. I actually had a chance to speak with Mr. Varianos about that project last night when we were in person for the cemetery conversation. So I felt like I was able to address some of their concerns about that project. But as we try to emphasize regularly, that's not our purview as a village board. It's a planning board project, and we have a really strong group of volunteers on our village planning board. So if folks want to share thoughts with them, that's the best route, especially once there are public hearings regarding that particular project. Okay, so then jumping into our business agenda. Does anyone want
A couple
to
of people had
Well-
hopped on when we were in the middle of it, just want to make sure no one else had public comment, right?
say that again?
Oh, I just know there were a bunch of people hopping on in the middle of public comment, so I just want to make sure nobody else needed to speak.
Good idea. So last call for public comment right now.
Sorry, thanks.
No, it's fine.
I
I'm
see Cheryl's hand up.
good. Yeah, I like having public comment at the beginning and end of meetings. All for it. We don't need a timer unless we're particularly worried about a especially long evening. Who has their hand up? Because
Oh,
I'm
Cheryl
looking at
had
my
her
phone
hand
and
up.
staring at a desktop. So
Hi. Hi, my name is Cheryl Schneider and I live in the neighboring town of Rosendale. And I'm really glad that the village is taking this up tonight. I just heard about it very last minute. I am a strong supporter of Clean Slate. I think it's really inhumane to keep punishing people over and over again for the sentences that they've served. Some of them, really harsh sentences, something like 3 out of 4 people in prison are people of color. So the discrepancies are insane. And when they come out after it's done, if they make it through the gauntlet of probation and get it done, perfectly, then they can't get food stamps, they can't get housing, they can't get a job, they can't get other forms of assistance that they desperately need. Most people on the inside, I think, from having done some of this work, have worked harder on themselves to make themselves to be better people, to reconcile with what they've done, and more so than us on the outside when we're so busy running around doing our lives. And I just think we need them all out. We need them to actually have a chance and to have our thriving, robust communities whole. Thank you for having a chance to comment.
Thanks for that comment.
Thank you.
I'm really grateful for everybody who has come forward to comment on this, and I'm really glad to hear that that my feelings are similar to my constituents.
Okay, I'm going to jump in. Does anyone want to take a moment to address business item number 1, climate equity justice related, as a summary spot?
Yeah, well, our, public commenters did a good job summarizing, the clean slate resolution and its importance in terms of equity and justice.
Good.
Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Okay. So I'm going to move to item number 3. So for several years, we have worked closely with the Historic Preservation Commission, their members and Chair Tom Olson, to figure out how we could have a design review process to augment and support our planning board review process. And we kind of bent ourselves into a pretzel on many occasions. And it was actually our building inspector, Corey Worthman, who pointed out that in our rewritten version of the B2, it currently says no structure shall be demolished nor the exterior of any structure altered for commercial use unless such action is approved by the planning board and reviewed by the Village Historic Preservation Commission. Basic maintenance and essential repairs such as like-for-like materials which do not alter the exterior appearance of the structure are permitted. So, this kind of couple of line that was just extracted from our existing B2 that we put into our zoning kind of does exactly what we were hoping a design review process to do. And what we were figuring out, myself and Autumn, while we were working with the attorneys, is like creating a separate standalone code was more complicated than we imagined. Whereas if we simply just make sure that this is in our business districts, including the Gateway, B2, and the NBR, then we have a review process where when a project is before our planning board in parallel, they can chat with our Historic Preservation Commission. And the idea has always been, it's really like free consulting. It's not supposed to be an arduous process that makes something more expensive, but it's more about, hey, developer, have you considered this material or this design feature that might work with the neighboring buildings better, or work with how that building has functioned or presented itself historically. So I think the idea here is just that this sentence or a couple of lines is already in the B2, and then we just make sure that it is included in the site development standards in exactly the same way for the Gateway and the NBR. So what's interesting is the NBR and the B2, for all intents and purposes, are very comparable in terms of zoning rules. And we added this to the more updated version when we rewrote the B1 and B2 to create the new B2. So I'm gonna suggest that we have a public hearing and consider adding this to the gateway and the NBR by having that public hearing on February 8th. Does someone want to second it and ask any questions or have a discussion?
I'll second
Okay,
it.
I'll seconded it. Any questions? Any further thoughts?
I think the consistency would be great, Tim.
Yeah, just backing up, that same idea. We love consistency. It makes everything so much easier. So excited for this public hearing next time.
Good stuff. Then moving on. So I'm gonna before completely jumping ahead to past item number 4 that had been in our agenda. So we got a note from the attorney's team that will be doing the presenting to us, and they were unfortunately not available to do their presentation on the 8th, but they will be available to do their presentation on the 22nd with us in person. And then the other thing that they added is in this agenda, we had only included exhibit number 3 from what they had shared with us in December. So I think if it hasn't been done already, Autumn had already responded saying that we're going to make sure per their request that they wanted to make exhibits 1 and 2 publicly available. The reason that we only included exhibit 3 is because it just had the bigger, prettier pictures and less of the other details. So no issue whatsoever with making sure all exhibits are included. And then clean slate.
Right.
I definitely give Alex credit for making sure that this ended up on our agenda for our board and community to consider. So I'll take it away, Al.
Yeah, thanks so much, everyone. So this is our resolution to call upon the state legislature to pass a Clean Slate Act. Lukey Forbes actually just joined the meeting and is somewhat of an expert on this. But I figure I can just present the resolution and then if Lukey had anything that they want to say, could say it and we could, motion second and then if there's any discussion. Sound good? Cool. So whereas 2.3 million people in New York State have criminal conviction records, and whereas people with criminal conviction records face thousands of civil barriers to employment, licensing, housing, and educational opportunities long after they have completed their sentences. And whereas racial disparities and socioeconomic discrimination are rampant throughout the criminal legal system, and statistics and anecdotal evidence show that convictions for even low-level offenses result in cyclical harm and structural instability for individuals, families, and communities. And whereas excluding individuals with criminal records from full participation in society through a system of perpetual punishment creates intergenerational trauma and exacerbates racial and economic inequality. And whereas Black and Latinx New Yorkers are far more likely to be stopped, arrested, prosecuted, convicted, and incarcerated in the criminal legal system than white New Yorkers. And whereas people of color are far more likely to be discriminated against based on a conviction record. And whereas people who have been to prison lose an average of $484,400 in earnings over their lifetime. And whereas excluding individuals with conviction histories from the workforce costs the economy between $78 billion and $87 billion in lost gross domestic product. And whereas approximately 95% of incarcerated people return to their communities after serving their sentences. And whereas giving people access to jobs, housing, education, and licenses to practice a trade increases their participation in the economy and reduces the likelihood they will return to prison, thereby making our communities safer. Whereas only approximately 2,500 of an estimated 600,000 eligible people, or less than 0.5%, have had their records sealed since New York's current application-based sealing law went into effect back in 2017. Whereas a system of automatic sealing and expungement of criminal records is essential to provide relief to those who need it most. And whereas the Clean Slate Act, sponsored by Senator Zelnor Myrie and Assembly Member Catalina Cruz, would require that most criminal records be sealed automatically after a specified period of time. And whereas the Clean Slate Act would remove systemic barriers to stable housing, employment, and education, and allow millions of New Yorkers to participate fully in civic life and in their communities. And whereas numerous other states, including Pennsylvania, Michigan, Utah, and Connecticut, have already passed clean slate legislation. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the New Paltz Village Board calls on the state legislature to pass and the governor to sign the Clean Slate Act. And as with all of our resolutions, be it further resolved that we send this off to U.S. Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, U.S. Senator Charles Schumer, U.S. Congressman Pat Ryan, Governor Kathy Hochul, State Senator Michelle Hinchy, State Assembly Member Sarah Hannah Shrestha, and the whole list of other representatives, including Eve, who was just here, our county legislature. So that's it. I guess I'll move that we pass this and we can get a second, and then if we can invite Lukey to speak. So I move.
Back in.
Yes, Donna, thank you. All right. Hey, Lukey, thanks for stopping by our meeting.
No problem. I appreciate this.
Sweet. So was there any discussion, any questions that any of the village board had before we vote? Or Lukey, did you want to say anything at all?
It doesn't really seem that there's too much that needs to be said. This has kind of been referred to as like a no-brainer type of bill. If there are any questions pertaining the bill, the way that it's going to work and process, please ask those questions and I can answer it. But if you feel comfortable going for a vote, please let me know.
Thank you, Lukey, for being here and offering your knowledge. I mean, I am a huge supporter of this bill, and our justice system is so very flawed, and there's a lot of folks who have been convicted and received unfair sentences. And what we want out of a good justice system is for people to serve the time and come out and, you know, become part of our community again. And a few of our public comments touched exactly on that. So thank you all for sharing that. I love also when we have folks here to give public comment. One of the things in that, there was an attachment you sent to us, Alex, that was really helpful about this. And one of the things it said, and I lost my place, so let me just, and maybe Lukey can speak to that, was, I'm going to work off memory, but it was like the records are sealed except for a few instances. And the instances, I think, would calm anyone's concerns who, if anybody does have concerns about this bill, but the instances were for gun licensing or to become a police officer. Maybe Lukey, you can speak to that a little bit.
So everyone would be eligible for a clean slate except sexual offenders, as well as law enforcement. Any form of law enforcement can view folks' cases, as well as jobs that do federal background checks. So if they're fingerprinting and doing those federal background checks, so any job that kind of works with vulnerable people or information is still going to have access to these records. And at any point, like throughout a case or a process, even if it's a pill or a person gets reinvested, the courts will still have access to those records as well. So the only time that it's actually sealed is as long as someone is not interacting with the criminal justice system at all, and they're not applying for a job that deals with vulnerable people or information.
Thank you.
I think Bill had a question also.
Yeah, hi, Lukey. Thanks so much. And the end notes that were attached to the document we received were quite helpful. I think it's important to point out that if I'm reading the chart correctly, there's some 32,000 people in Ulster County that are affected by this. That seems like a very large number. I'm glad to see, if I'm reading that number right, that this is happening. My concern has been for a while is how this ties into the homelessness situation we have in this country, particularly in this state. This is a great step forward in helping to possibly alleviate some of that. And thank you so much for your good work.
Thank you.
And I really appreciate what you pointed out, Michelle, because I think that some folks, might otherwise not fully understand. So being able to relay some people's fears is really important. And Lukey, having you come and take the time is really so appreciated. Thank you so much.
All right, so I'm gonna call the question.
Aye.
Bye.
Aye.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks,
And it
everyone.
passes. Thank you so much again, Lukey, for coming on and for, helping us work through this. We're really excited to be supporting this important legislation. Hopefully it passes this year.
Thank you all so much. This is definitely going to help us really continue to push the legislators in the state to really pass this. And I appreciate you all for really voting in this favor and just being the amazing people you are. I definitely look forward to continue to build power with you all. Thank you.
It's an honor being in this
Look
fight with
forward
you,
to working
Lukey.
with you, Lukey.
All right.
See you later.
Good stuff. And it was actually, I think, very helpful, and it's great to have the community chime in when we have items on our agenda. It feels like we're not, just talking to ourselves. It's great to get that feedback. So thanks everyone for making public comments earlier. So the next item is the Central Hudson billing issues. CCA Administrator Jewel facilitated a meeting with Pulp. That was today at noon. So that's basically we're just sharing that conversation occurred. I've actually been taking pictures of my own meter like a couple of times a month, just to triple check all of Central Hudson's calculations. And I think what is kind of getting lost in a lot of these conversations about Central Hudson, and I think Alex referred to this recently, the issue really is not so much, it was definitely frustrating when people were getting estimated bills that were not accurate, and then that was corrected. But for me, the issue is I just spent like $3,500 on electricity last year. And that's what my meter says. And the reason I spent so much money is because of their cost per kilowatt hour is through the roof. We had a CCA where we were going to pay 6.5 cents per kilowatt hour. And unfortunately, the energy supply company defaulted on their agreement with us. That's a whole other thing that's in litigation. But, most of this year, I'm paying closer to 17-20 cents per kilowatt hour. That's why everyone's bills are so bananas. It's the cost.
Yeah, today, Central Hudson and I were fighting with each other on Twitter, actually, to this end. They kept saying, oh, yeah, we're here to dispel misinformation. Like some people were hurt because of our billing errors. And I'm like, no, we're hurt because you're this behemoth company with horrible customer service, and you don't make any sense. There's no accountability. And on top of that, you're charging an arm and a leg for dirty fossil fuel electricity. And then you're telling customers we're too stupid to understand the billing, basically. So Yeah, that was my fun lunch break.
I'm gonna playfully disagree with what you just said. It's not no accountability. They're very accountable to their shareholders.
Oh, yeah, true. Very
I mean,
true.
that's the problem here. It's a for-profit entity, a for-profit monopoly. You know, monopoly's fine if it's a public utility and it's serving the public, but this is a broken system. I'm glad that I was able to, contribute so generously to their for-profit shareholders. When I paid them $3,500 this year for electricity, which barely includes heating.
Geez. Also just on this item, just so you all know, last night in the Landlord Tenant Relations Council meeting, we brought up, oh, should we try to have another community workshop with Public Utility Law Project? Because the last one was so well attended, by new faces that don't necessarily come to all the things. And there's a lot of new questions that have come up since that workshop. So it's something that we're trying to work on to do sometime this year.
Sorry, I'm just taking a look at. Okay. Well, that's that. So we included the link to Pulp, who's a valuable resource, and I would love it if the state legislature took a harder look at, how this entire system works, where I don't feel like it's doing a great job of serving the public. Next item, we have this resolution that we pulled from the consent agenda to set a date for the tax sale of the unpaid village taxes, and that will be on March 6th. As Kitty was mentioning in her public comment, it sometimes is a situation where people just haven't been able to fund their tax bill, or maybe something slips through the cracks. So I think, not broadcasting who has not, it's a publicly available document. It gets included in the newspaper. I mean, many times people at the 11th hour go ahead and pay their tax bill. So it can be a valuable way to remind people to get those payments in. So no item, well, yeah, this is a resolution, just that we're setting the date. So I move that we set the date.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And the next item is also a resolution authorizing the village to submit our grant application to the Restore New York Round 7 program. Does someone want to second my motion?
I do.
Okay, so for discussion, I definitely want to give Autumn Seguin, our project manager, a special shout out. Autumn's been doing a ton of work making sure that all the I's were dotted on this grant application. Like most grant applications that are submitted to New York State, there's a lot of unintuitive detail that needs to be handled, and Autumn's been really careful and very mindful of the deadlines, and just want to give Autumn a special thank you publicly for making sure that was all done correctly.
Thank you, Autumn.
So, we're basically asking for money to help the Margaret Wade Lewis Black History Cultural Center to restore the building so it can become what the MWL Center is hoping that it can all it can be. The way this program works, and I think it's just fortuitous in that the property continues to be owned by the village, so we can apply. Well, actually, not necessarily in this case. That's for one of our other grants, but we're definitely working in partnership with S.E. Lewis and the center to try to take advantage of any opportunity for funding to help, get the property and the house stabilized and restored. So this is one of those programs. All in favor of signing on to the resolution?
Aye.
Aye.
And the next item was a grant application that we received for some EV charging station money that we were going to use for a couple of charging stations at Village Hall. We've kind of learned the hard way that working with ChargePoint is really, they're not a great partner for municipalities. It ends up costing us money. There's lots of unknowns around corners that we didn't anticipate with like new modems and new software updates. You know, again, it's a publicly traded company, so they got to make their money. Good for their shareholders. But it just does not work well for us as a municipality who's just trying to promote EV penetration, but we want to do it in a fiscally responsible way for our taxpayers. So we were able to find an alternative, and that's why we're rescinding this grant opportunity. Is like we've entered into a contract with another partner, so we could have EV charging at Village Hall, but just in a way that is more fiscally responsible for our taxpayers. So I'd move that we rescind this grant offer.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And the next item is the Millbrook Preserve Bridge project. So we put together a bid package. We had two outfits bid on the project. It was a lot more money than we anticipated. I think both bids were in the plus $400,000 range, which was way more than our grant award from New York State Parks. So we've been brainstorming with the engineers from Peak as well as with our Public Works Department to figure out a way to tighten up a new bid package to get more contractors to bid. I think one of the reasons that it was expensive was because there was just like too many unknowns, too many, well, if this is more complicated than we anticipate, we're just going to bid really high. So we're hoping that we can do a better job and tighten up the project so that the numbers will come in closer to the grant award that we received from New York State Parks, so we can end up finally having these bridge crossings constructed in the Millbrook Preserve. Someone want to second my motion to
I'll second.
reject the two bids? Second, any further discussion? No, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And then we hope to have updated bid docs by the Feb 22 village board meeting, and then get contractors to bid on those during the subsequent couple of weeks. And then hopefully we can get a project built this spring or early summer. Motion, or I move that we adopt the resolution for bills and claims.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any planning board liaison update?
Sure, hi. No update from Ulster County Planning Board because we haven't met. They did give their weigh-in on 145 North Chestnut, which we received. The last meeting, there was a deck approval. 145 Main also laid out some of their plans, which included that the height of the building will be 42 feet with the parapet, excuse me. And they're planning on doing a connection to the rail trail. They want to put solar on top of their roof. And the most notable proposals were two cannabis dispensary locations, one at 98 North Chestnut Street, and also another one just down the street at 88 North Chestnut Street. These are preliminary applications before the planning board.
Yeah, and I think it's super important for our community to realize that. So it's tough for entrepreneurs right now who are interested in opening dispensaries in New Paltz or anywhere, because there's a process where they're going before planning boards, but there's an unknown in that There are social justice licenses that will be distributed first, and then there are other adult recreation licenses that will be distributed. The timeline when all that happens, I think, is a lot longer than a lot of people anticipate. And there are also very clear rules about the distances between dispensaries in small communities like ours. There, the guidelines from the Office of Cannabis Management are clearly stating that you're not going to have dispensaries within 2,000 feet of one another. So in our village, that's a pretty significant distance. So I hear a lot of folks in the community scratching their head about different dispensaries before planning boards, and entrepreneurs need to do what they're going to do, and they're going to dot I's and try to move projects forward. But there's a lot of moving parts that are being considered. So I don't want anyone to be too nervous about the idea that any community is going to have like too much of any one thing, unless it's pizza places, because that's obviously fun.
And those are very good points. Thanks, Tim. To sort of put in perspective, the city of New York just opened their second dispensary this week. Tells you how quickly things are evolving.
Things are moving slowly, and then there's also an injunction where someone who was hoping to get a social justice license has actually pursued an action against New York State, which has slowed this process up even further. There are 5 regions across the state that are tied up at this injunction right now, and the Mid-Hudson is one of them. So that's another reason why all of this is going to take longer than many of us would expect or like.
Yeah, I would also just like to say that if you're considering applying for a license, do your homework thoroughly.
And that's what we're seeing, is that the entrepreneurs who are considering these businesses are doing their work, and it's been impressive to see the work that is behind some of these applications. Any ZBA liaison update?
No, the ZBA has not met since our last meeting.
Okay. Anything else on our village board agenda that we need to circle back on?
One thing, the seeker declaration for the Restore New York application.
Nice. So
Right.
Will sent up language, right? I saw that in an email earlier.
Yeah.
Well, we just have to do I'm sorry, go ahead, you say it.
No, just that we have to make a declaration per seeker for our application, right?
Yeah,
Yep.
it's a neg deck, right?
It's a type 2 action.
Yeah, type 2 action under SECRA.
So Alex, that's your motion?
Yeah, I would like to, do we have to amend our initial thing,
No,
or like just a
I think
separate?
Separate
I
thing.
think it's just the declaration.
Okay, so I move to include in the New York Restore item, a declaration that it is classified as a type 2 action under SECRA.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks Autumn's been on top of this application, and that did not slip through the cracks.
Thank you for that.
Anything else that
Autumn's the best.
anything else that we need to do tonight?
I am grateful to everybody, and especially to our community members who came
Yeah.
to join us tonight. We really, really love, as the mayor said earlier, we really love, and I think Alex said it too, I think all of us will reiterate that as much participation from the community as possible is what we want to see.
Yeah,
So
and we're
thank you
super
for
proud
coming
of
and taking the time.
Yeah, we're super proud of our new first floor, so it's accessible to everyone, meeting room in the old fire station space. So because of this storm, we were bummed we weren't there tonight, but we're really hoping that moving forward it'll help with participation, because it's great to engage the community, and I think it definitely energizes the board. Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
I second. Bye.
Aye.
Bye. Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Thanks. Good night.